Welcome everybody to Illustration Masterclass with your host Kyle T. Webster. That's me. Sorry for the little bit late start. Having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure things will be just fine. Alrighty, so today we're going to pick up where we left off last time, looking at the work of Mark English, an absolutely amazing, astounding illustrator from the United States who had a long and amazing career. And we looked at a lot of the examples of his work. And we kind of picked out a few of the recurring themes and stylistic choices that he made that made his work so original, so unique, so interesting, and then began the process of creating an illustration based on what we observed from some of that work. And today what I'm going to do is, and sometimes we do this in Illustration Masterclass, where I'll just spend the entire time really drawing for you and explaining my thinking as I go, talking about the brushes that I'm using, and talking about really just all of the decisions I'm making, why I'm making those decisions, and how I'm thinking through everything that I'm doing. And I think sometimes that's one of the best ways to learn, is to watch somebody just go through the process of creating a little bit of art and listen to what they're thinking about as they do it. Now, for me, this is a brand new exercise. I've never tried to, with Mark English specifically, work in a style where I'm really thinking about everything that he did and try and sort of infuse my work with some of those cool stylistic choices, those style elements, and just a lot of the things that made his unique visual vocabulary so fun and so often copied and imitated and beloved, of course, by the illustration community for many, many decades. All right, so I'm going to first pull up a few examples of Mark's work from the old interwebs here, because we had done that before, and I want to make sure that I have at least a few good examples to work from, and I want you all to see these so that you see kind of what my thought process is and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm just going to copy and paste these to my canvas, and we'll have a few of those to look at. And in the meantime, talk amongst yourselves, say hello everybody. I know that we have people joining us who are always here, and I really appreciate the repeat viewing. It's really cool that I have people in the audience who I get to kind of hang out with and see every week when we do this show, and familiar faces are always welcome. And I see some of those folks right now: Gareth and Cody and Umacorn and Peter and Afroha, nice to see you, and Steve, of course. Cryo, always joining us, really nice to see you as well. All right, so I'll jump over to Photoshop here, and I can continue to grab a little bit of reference for you. All right, so we can start building this out. Those of you who were with me last week will see where I left off here. If I just hide these for a moment, you remember we were using some custom brushes to paint in after I had created a sketch here for this little layout, which I'll just bring that back for a moment. That sketch is right there. You can see that if I bring that up over here and increase the opacity, you get a good sense of compositionally how I was kind of breaking apart that space and working within the confines of that rectangle there, and really thinking about the picture plane and how to divide it up in an interesting way with geometry, which is one of the things that we see Mark doing a lot in his work. And so I'm going to just grab another example of that right here. And one of the things that's hard to do, of course, is find examples of Mark's work that are large enough, because of course I'm working on a pretty big canvas right here, and I want you all to be able to see things in not so low a resolution, but I'll see what I can find here slightly larger for you all. Actually, I'm going to pull up something that is one of his images from a much more recent period in his life, when he was doing a lot of amazing landscape work. I think you're going to like this, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it takes a lot of the style elements he had in his illustration work. Look at this, and he's just pulling it right into painting, and this is work done for himself, for his own gratification, for, of course, actual gallery shows and things like that. But I want you to see, for example, this little area right here. And this is something that you see, this is a clear evolution from the work that he was doing as an illustrator, where he was just putting these really beautiful patterns in the work. But the patterns, they really feel very much handmade. It's not like they're so perfect or orderly that you lose that sense of somebody getting in there and really designing them out in a more of an organic way. Look at this little section right here as well. Now this is that really wonderful sort of signature dotted pattern that we see as well, appearing in a lot of his work, a little sort of an echo of it right down there. And it's because of that that I started to implement a similar approach right here using the dots. And if you remember from last time, the way I was doing this was with the Seurat brush, which is in the Impressionist set. And that's something you can download, you out there who want to use Photoshop to paint and draw. And hey Barbara, thanks for joining us. And Stony, nice to see you as well. If you want to use that brush, what you do is you go over here to your brushes menu. There's a little drop down menu, get more brushes. And what that's going to do is launch for you this nice web page right here. And what you're going to do is sign in with your Adobe IDs. And what's going to, after you sign in, look what you get. You get always at the top the seasonal brush update, which is spring 2023 brushes, which by the way, I was using some of those for this painting and I'll continue to do so. But then you get all these other fantastic sets. The Mega Pack has over 400 brushes, watercolor with over 200 watercolors, dry media, gouache, spatter, runny inkers, manga, crosshatchers, rigs. Look at all this. You've got over 2,000 different brushes to play with, all these seasonal updates from over the years as well, each containing some really good and fun stuff to play with. So there's a lot for you to enjoy right there, and that's how you access those, okay? So go to it, go and find them and play around, enjoy those lovely brushes, okay gang? Don't let everybody else have all the fun. You got to get in on that as well. So use that lovely Creative Cloud subscription to grab those brushes and paint. If you're using Fresco on the iPad, you can do the same thing. Just go to Discover New Brushes by tapping on your Brushes panel, and at the very bottom you'll see the option to add more brushes, and Discover Brushes is going to pull up that same menu, and you just add that library straight to the app. Simple as that. All right, so quickly revisiting some stuff we looked at last week. Here in this painting, you can see that more of that dotted pattern right there. We also noticed that there are these areas of the painting where it's more sort of realistically rendered, and then other areas that are flatter, okay? And they're not so much a realism kind of approach, but more just a design approach and thinking about what's an interesting thing I can do with this area of the canvas using pattern, using color, using design, using shape and line, etc. But it is more of an abstract kind of approach to painting this tree, for example, and it's really gorgeous. You just isolate it. It's really fantastic, right? And then also seeing approaches like this, which, are a little closer to sort of that work of an artist like Bernie Fuchs or somebody like this, where you're working really closely from the photo reference, but then you're playing around with really calling out these silhouettes, these specific shapes, kind of giving them a good solid hard outline, but then a lot of brush work going on there, a lot of activity on the surface. We talked about that, being able to see evidence of the brush work, getting a lot of good, rich surface activity is something exciting when you look at the work, even though it does from a distance kind of have this sort of flat graphic approach to picture making. The surface is really activated with those brush strokes and all that kind of stuff, okay? Pattern kind of falls in line with that as well, I would say. And so in my own work here, okay, which is me playing around and being inspired by what I'm seeing in his, I'm also trying to do that, where you see these active areas where the brush strokes are visible. And that's being done, okay, with the help of brushes that take advantage of color dynamics. And so for this, for example, if we go over to that Spring 2023 brush set right here, okay, there's a brush right there called Color Push. And this brush is really helping me to achieve what you're seeing here. What it allows me to do is select a foreground and background color and have them play against one another depending on how much pressure I'm using with my pen. So for instance, if I want to paint out a little bit more of this area, I can grab that green as my foreground color and have the background color be something a little more in the blue area, like this, maybe a little darker, a little richer like that. And if I paint with it, you'll see that with heavy pressure, I get that green, but with lighter pressure, I start to bring in some of that blue. It's subtle, but you see that? So there's more of the blue, and there's more of the green, and there's more of the blue. And by varying my pressure throughout, what I get is these nice visible brush strokes. And that's how you can achieve that in Photoshop, get that nice look. And so I can size my brush down and come in here, vary my pressure, heavy, light, etc. Get that all in there. And it also has a little bit of a texture to it, which is really fun, and that's due to, of course, the stamp, the shape of the stamp, but also a texture file that's associated with that brush. Now, if a lot of the stuff I'm saying is a little confusing, remember this is sort of a different kind of show that we do here in Adobe Live, these master classes. Sometimes we make assumptions about what you do and do not know about the app, but go ahead and stop me if you have any questions, because this is live, and if you're watching over on Behance, you can ask me questions and I can answer them right here for you. So please go ahead and do that. I wanna know if I'm saying anything that's confusing anybody, and I can answer questions for you as we go. Okay? Alrighty. So let's continue now. If I pull my sketch back up for a moment here, I'll reduce the opacity. All right, we'll just knock that back. You see that I was kind of drawing a face here. We've got this shape cutting right down through here, which could be the hair, right? And then we can change that shape right here to offset this little area here, a little asymmetrical balance. Okay, so I was going to have the hair maybe curve down this way, and then here we might continue with another shape, and we could pick up some of this color and then maybe suggest that there's a dress there of some kind, and we can cut off this area here, maybe carry on through the hair right across. And have a shirt maybe with a pattern. I really like that sort of triangle kind of pattern that I was seeing in the landscape that we looked at a moment ago. It was really beautiful. Right here, those little triangles. And I think that's going to be something we can try as well. And I don't really have any ideas apart from that. Really, I'm just trying to sort of paint a figure in some kind of imagined, maybe kind of a landscape. Couple of shapes and things that represent possibly this could be like a bridge, an elevated bridge in the background. You know, we don't know. And maybe like this is like a little bit closer to like a barn, something like that. And this shape up here kind of suggesting maybe some clouds in the sky. And then again, the figure in the foreground. I don't know what's going to happen here. This could be, you know, a landscape. We could have some grass right here and do something interesting there with pattern and brushwork to kind of suggest that. Maybe break that up a little bit with some different kind of layers of grass, things like this. I had this idea for these columns kind of continuing here, but being part of this dress or this coat, whatever this is. Some distortion going on with the figure, making this shoulder so wide, or this kind of shape just carry out like this, and then oversimplifying the shape for the hair, etc. All these things are just part of that language that I am observing in Mark's work, and I want to carry those through. All right, so here we go. So using this same brush, since it's a good one, I want to see what I can do here by now adding in some of that hair. So if I want to have a background color, okay, that works nicely, I've got this foreground color here. I'm picking up some of that yellow there in the background. I'm seeing that yellow kind of works nicely. So maybe I want to select some of that, maybe make that a bit richer right there. And we take this color, make it a bit more powerful, a bit redder. And then we just see what the brush does, you know, if I play with that. Okay, so I can do this. See that? That's pretty nice. And then we can come straight down this way, okay, as we saw in my sketch, and I can just use the Shift key to make that happen, right? And I think I'm going to be using some line art on top of this to kind of decorate the inside of the shape here and make that work. And I'm going to just lay in some more. I'll make the brush a lot bigger and just kind of punch in like this. Okay, just to get all that stuff in there. And I'm going to change that in a minute, because if you remember, we have here I can make these big chunky brush marks like this and really get some interesting activity going in there. And you see how quick and easy it is to do that and to really add some interesting surface texture, okay, with this approach, right? And you'll remember from the sketch that I have the hair breaking right here and then down this way. So this is an area where I'm just going to pick up this color again, all right, and then keep things moving that way. So what I can do is I can switch over to the creamy brush from the Mega Pack, because that's a really great brush for painting this way. Or if I wanted to, I could pick up, I have a new brush that's coming your way for summer 2023, or pardon me, fall 2023. It's coming out soon. Just pop on down this way. Here are the fall brushes that I'm working on right now. Whoops, looks like some of them are missing. Let me just replace this with the most recent. I wonder if because I quit Photoshop and came back, for some reason it did not update those. So hang on. Go to fall 2023 and just bring that brush set in there. Pull it up this way. And there we go, pop it right over there. So here are the brushes I'm working on at the moment. Summer brushes are already on their way to you soon, gang. So this brush here, great paint. Let me see how that looks when I paint with it. Okay, really nice. But what I can do with any brush I use in Photoshop is I can assign those same color dynamics, okay, to the brush. So if I open up my brush settings panel right here and go to brush settings, color dynamics, I can say here, yeah, let's go ahead and use pen pressure to control foreground and background color with this brush. So heavy pressure, light pressure. See that? So I can get those same kind of nice effects right there. I love it. All right, so moving on, we'll grab this as our foreground color. Okay, and there's that little break I'm gonna make. Make the brush a little smaller. And then for my background color, I'm just gonna go ahead and hit with this right here. All right, and now if I go ahead and interrupt this area right here, okay, with heavier pressure, I'm gonna get more of that color. With light pressure, more of the dark. See that? I mean, the other way around. And so that's gonna give me more of the same kind of thing, but just a little different. Like it's same but different, and it's so cool to be able to control that like this. And a lot of people really forget. They forget what an incredibly powerful tool Photoshop is for painting. They just forget, right? Because so much is talked about with design and photo compositing and photo editing and photography and all this stuff. But gang, I mean, if you want to paint, you can't go wrong if you're using Photoshop. It's incredible. Size the brush down. Every time you see me doing that, I'm using the keyboard, and what I'm doing is I'm using the bracket keys to size that brush down. Okay, that's what's happening there. The bracket keys are my friends right there. They are doing a lot of the work for me there. And I don't mind that some of the blue is making its way in here. See this? Just kind of like let that happen. It just kind of makes it interesting. But I want to kind of curve that right there. Come over here, and now we'll go ahead and change that background color. And then just paint a bit more precisely here with that smaller brush and let that do its thing right there. Clean up that edge. Sometimes I like that edge though to stay a little bit kind of rough, even leave a little bit of space now and then in between, right? I'll pick that up later. But if it's too perfect, then it kind of loses that feeling of being painted with a larger brush. You know what I mean? So here I can kind of round that out, but I can also use light pressure, and there's a bit of transparency there, and that lets some of this interesting activity come through. All right, and that's one of the things, again, when you're looking at the work that's inspiring all this, there's something really delightful about edges being clean, but not so clean that they're just, you know, totally boring and perfect, right? We don't want that, because then you lose some of the charm, right? That's the whole thing. We're trying to retain that charm, okay? All right, so there we go. Now, if you squint and look at this, okay, what you're gonna get is really strong contrast between these dark areas and then this light area here. And all this, the values here are all very similar. And you can't leave it like that forever. Obviously, that's not gonna work. You've gotta have some areas that balance these darks. And we're gonna find some ways to do that. All right, for one thing, we're probably gonna change the value of this as we kind of come down this way and lighten it up as we go. We've already started doing a little bit of that here, but that's gonna pull my eye up. All right, I wanna go from the light into the dark with a heavier contrast area. So this area here and this area here are gonna get a lot closer to each other in value. We'll go ahead and do something down here to change this as well. But then we're going to bring some of this dark action right here into, okay, this shape right here where we have sort of the roof of the barn. And we're also going to have some more contrast in the face, but we may also choose to add an element here, okay, where the hair is. We may choose to add like a little hat or some kind of a hair piece of some kind to a hair accessory, you know, to bring in some of that dark shape as well. So we just want to like squint and look at it and say how are our shapes looking. And remember that when you look at Mark's work, there's so much design, so much shape design, so much consideration for all these kinds of elements of design being balanced and well considered. So I think that's an important thing. Pausing now to see if we have any questions. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Cody, for throwing in there the information about downloading the brushes, and thank you, Becca, for the very nice comment about watching this process, watching everything unfold, as it were. Okay. All right. So one of the other things too we haven't done yet is introduced any more colors, because I'm just kind of like simply going through this and working with these two colors more or less, blue and a sort of orangey yellow, and it's really more of a blue green. And that's really where everything is right now. It just keeps things simple for me at this stage. But you notice that we do have some pinks here in the flesh. And what we can do is we can take those colors and we can start to like bring them out. Okay, we look at this right here. We can start to go a little more saturated right there. And that can start making an appearance somewhere else in the illustration. So one thing we can do is we can take that and we can throw it here in the barn, for example. Then we can hit it with a dark shape for the roof. I don't yet know if that's the way to go. I don't know anything at this stage. I just know that I'm trying things out. I'm going to see how they work. So while I've got this big brush, I can go ahead and on another layer here, that's the beauty of working in layers, I can come behind here and I'm not going to worry too much about it. Oh, it looks like I'm still going to hit that, but that's okay. You'll see now that this color, you know, this is pretty much going to be safe. We're not going to have to like sweat it too much with this color. It's not going to hurt anything. And there it goes. Very nice. Now I'm letting some of that lighter color come through with the pen pressure right there. Okay, but you can see that generally speaking, this is pretty harmonious, right? This is going to be fine. All right, it's not going to hurt anything. Not at all. And we're letting this come up. And you know, do we want to center over this arch? Tough decision. I don't know. There's something about it that I kind of like balance-wise here. We may change that shape. We may eliminate that shape altogether, and let's see what that looks like. I'm curious to see if that is even helping us, that shape. And some of that outline of blue right there, if I just let that be, it's cool because it shows that there was something happening there before that's no longer happening there. Okay, and we can let that be, and I can just now study it and see how things feel. And I don't think that was necessarily doing us any favors, to be honest. So I think we'll just go ahead and we'll do this, and we'll let some pockets of it show through. See this? Just let that show through. And you see evidence of that here. Look. See how you can see these other colors popping through the sky and these nice little textures and bits like that? It's really effective. Look at this beautiful area here in the background with that green just on top of it, right? You've got that atmospheric perspective pushing those hills back with a blue purplish kind of color and a light value, and then you just hit it with a little bit of green, roughly the same value. It all just activates that space, makes it so much more interesting. And I just want to borrow that kind of thinking as I'm painting here, and that's also explaining what I was doing over here if you look in this area. Okay, that's all intentional. It's all meant to just make that less static, less flat, okay, and give us a bit more to look at there. That's you know, what I said last time was how I like to use the word rewarded, right? If you're the viewer, how you're rewarded when you get up close on the work and you get to see more than when you're far away. You get something both ways, right? When you're up close, you're getting rewarded, and when you're a little farther away, you're also just getting to see that full picture. All right, so for the darks here, we're gonna go ahead and grab this. There we go. And this is a weird thing Photoshop's been doing to me lately. I'll select a color and I'll just leave that that eyedropper icon there. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I have to update. I haven't updated in a few months. But anyhow, all right, now what happens if I take that and just bring it right here, okay, and we turn it into a shape like that, almost like an outline of sorts, okay, but it's a heavier outline. And we'll let it just bump into the hair there, and then we'll just paint on top of that, like so. Right, we do the same thing here. We can kind of clean that up a bit. We can even bring some of that in there and then paint over it like that. See that? That's just a cool thing to do. Use some of that transparency, that lightness, and let that just sort of be an interesting little space there. But now see, if you squint and look at it again, what you're getting now is this dark here. Okay, we're getting a bit of that dark over there, and that's helping us out a little bit. Now I don't want to run us off the page here, so what I can do, this is an interesting thing you can think about, is taking a shape like this, right, and it's all got one value right now, and you can just take that same shape, go ahead and grab this color, and we just paint it over this like this, and sample the color that it creates. There we go. And leave a bit of that outline right there, but then right here in the middle, just go ahead and break it like that. So we still have some contrast there, all right? We still have something kind of interesting, but then we just pick it up there. And I think that's kind of a neat thing to do, right? And if you want to bring some of this sky color into things, you know, you can use it here, right? Right over here if you want. Just as something to kind of throw some interesting contrast in right there, and then use that lighter pressure to pull in the background color. Okay, and then go back to that pink or that reddish kind of color and just hit it gently here and there. So now you're just getting a little taste of that in here, okay? And it's subtle, but it's there. It's enough to take the viewer, you know, from here to here and feel like there's some kind of relationship there. You know, all this kind of stuff. It's the kind of thing that we've talked about in other episodes of this show, where it's in the process of creating the illustration that you make these little choices. You know, it's not necessarily the kind of thing that just happens all ahead of time. You're planning all this out. It's a lot of what I love about painting in general, drawing, painting, etc., is that you are basically constantly reacting to what's on the canvas, you know, and you respond, you see something, and you go, oh, I got an idea, you know. And here, look, I can even use my selection tools if I want to get really clean. See this? Command-Shift-I, I can invert that selection and just paint right down onto it like this. Make sure that I get exactly what I want for that hard edge right there. That's a really nice thing. Then I can soften that even. And this is something else we looked at with Mark's work, which is so neat, which is he has these edges that are varied in his work, right? Hard edges, soft edges, areas that kind of blend and bleed into one another. That's constantly happening, and it's really pretty, really fun to look at. All right, so with that same selection, I'm going to Command-Shift-I. I'm going to invert that selection and just paint up here, okay, a little bit. Now, can anybody out there tell me, what am I doing? Why am I darkening this area? What's the point of all that? What is the point of that? Okay, and I'm going to go over to those impressionist brushes while I wait for that answer, and I'm going to grab that Syrah brush, there it is, and I'm just going to size it down and throw some of those dark dots in there to help it sort of unify a bit with what's happening here. But can anybody tell me, what is the point of that exercise we just went through? What did I need to do? I needed to push this forward, right? Push it forward. Depth, Peter says. Correct, correct. Yes. Depth. Bring one thing forward, bring another thing back, right? That's really what we're trying to accomplish there. That's what we're trying to do. Got my handy brush history right here. Okay, remember that's right here in Photoshop. The last 7 brushes that you've used are always right here, top of your brush panel. Okay, now I bring this selection, slide it on down this way. Okay, and this helps me to see that line right there. And this, I really want to line that up nicely because that's the kind of thing you'll see Mark do a lot, which is having implied lines in a painting. Implied lines means you have lines that you suggest that they continue across from one part of your composition to another, despite there being some kind of interruption. In this case, it's this interruption here, but I still want this to carry over this line. Cha-ching, just have that come right through like that. That's really satisfying. Really satisfying. We go to our background color here, we pick this up, make the brush a little bigger, and I can use my shift key to make that work right there. And here I just kind of let it fade away into whatever's going on there. Just let that be softer transition. Okay, we don't need to see that pop all the way down, but we will take that and carry it down here as well. So we're picking that up and carrying it through. Okay, picking that up and carrying it through. And then here I just want to go a little softer. So I'm just going to hit this with the same brush I'm using now with very light pressure. And it's the light pressure, okay, not just bringing out the background color in this case, but it's also, okay, controlling opacity. So this is going to have a light effect. I can swap these colors out. It's going to go even lighter. I want to retain some of that contrast I created to pop that forward. We don't have to be totally right. See that? Still got some contrast, but we're bringing that forward. Okay, we can do more with that later. And I had mentioned, using that sort of triangle pattern idea here, and I think that that's something I want to try. But I'm also looking over here at this barn shape and wondering what I can do with that. There might be an opportunity there to add a bit of a shape, okay, of a tree or something. Because if you notice in the work that we were looking at here, just the way that these lovely shapes are kind of like, think about the wings of a butterfly, that pattern of I don't know if you call it like a vein sort of pattern, but that sort of approach to taking this whole area and then subdividing it into all these little smaller shapes is such a cool thing to do. And I wanna try that over here by having the suggestion of a tree. And so I want to have a ground plane, and one of the things we did with the sketch, if you remember, was we looked at thirds, 1, 2, 3. We started thinking about top third, middle third, and bottom third, right? And so I think where that bottom third is right about there, it's a little higher than the third, but it's pretty close to a perfect third, okay, is where I want to throw that grass in. So we're gonna go ahead and hide that sketch for a minute, and we're just gonna think about that, and then getting a tree to kind of grow out of that. As far as the color goes, I don't want to hit with anything super saturated. So I like what we got going on here. I'm just going to push that this way. See that? Pushing it on the color wheel towards the greens, and I'm going to hit it a little darker right about there. And for my background color, I'm just going to use what's already there, like that. And then let's just do this. Let's just go ahead, create a little ground plane there, and then see what happens if I kind of paint that like there. Now right next to that coat, it really does have some good contrast. Whoops, what did I do right there? But moving into the barn, there's none, all right? And so we're probably going to darken one of these. I'm thinking probably we'll darken the grass for now, and then we'll see how it goes. So we got to get a little darker than this pink color, but not quite as dark as the blue. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to hit it down this away, a little darker. Take that background color, bring that forward like this, and this, we'll just see how that reads. Okay, let's go ahead and just hit that for a minute and see. And if I squint down on that, it's still close in value, but not quite the same. Let's see if that's an improvement right there. Still getting some good contrast there next to the coat. Now, earlier I mentioned that we could have some sort of like layers here, or further subdividing that area, layers of grass, so to speak. Now, there's also an opportunity there for some pattern work, things like that. There's also, we don't necessarily have to divide this. This could all just be one thing that kind of fades. But you do have to have these hard edges every now and then. So for now, I'm thinking that's a good place for one of those to exist. And I'm also seeing an opportunity here to really pop this forward. So I'm going to lighten that up. I'm going to lighten this even further. Push it a bit more towards like a yellow right there, like this. And I'm going to see what happens when I do this. And then let that just kind of be a little less powerful as I head up this way. And let some of that color come through again. Like that. I think that helps that area right there. It's just a nice kind of a shape. Those two half ellipses there. Is that the right word, or did you say ellipse? I don't know. Now, because these are complementary colors, this red and this green, I'm kind of interested in letting those play off each other more by having some of these colors show up the one in the other like this. That to me is just a fun thing to do. Kind of exciting. Just to have that sort of echo there. It's kind of fun. I don't know if that's probably not the right word, echo, but then really slice that there, make that a clean break. And yeah, that looks good. All right, so let's go ahead while we're still thinking about it. Pick up this color here. And I'm just going to look for this line right here. See this right here? I'm just going to pull that straight across and down like so, and down like so. And this is where we're going to do some of that nice pattern stuff with the triangles that I was really admiring in that landscape that we saw from Mark's stuff right there. It was just really super cool. And I'll make sure that I get some other colors in there so it's not too flat. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's try some of that in there. Now, if you look at the landscape there, he's using quite a bit of contrast. See that? And it's really stark. I don't know if it's going to work for me, but I'm going to grab this pink and I'm going to head down into this area right there. We're gonna cool that off, or warm it up, I should say. I'm not sure which way I'm going there because I'm kind of cooling it off. I don't want it to be so super bright, but to do this, I'm going to be using the creamy brush from the Mega Packs. We're gonna open that up and go to our paint box, and in here you'll find creamy and creamy variation. I'm just gonna grab that creamy brush and size it down like this. And let me show you something. I'm gonna start by just painting a little triangle like this. Okay, make that brush a little smaller, and then I'll do another one. Now this is a good way to go about this. Okay, is to just kind of paint these one after another like this, and you really get the sense that, oh yeah, someone's really painting those, and they're done individually. And that's fine, but you know, illustration masterclass here, we don't have a lot of time together. So another approach is this. I just go ahead and make a new document, and I go ahead and I'm using the same brush, okay? And I go ahead and I paint a triangle. I'm gonna make this triangle kind of tall and thin and you'll see why in a moment. So I just kind of get that like this. And using my lasso tool, I'm just going to get sort of picky around the edges here, break that up a little bit, come in here, out this way, all right, Command-Shift-I, invert my selection and delete it. Okay, and there's the triangle that I painted. Okay, now I'm going to just sort of skew that a little bit. Okay, so it's mostly kind of level. Round off this corner just a hair, and then what I say is I go edit, define brush preset, and we just call this English triangle, just like that. All right, now I'm going to come back to my painting here. Here we are, and we're going to use that color I was using a moment ago right there. And let's there we go. Let's make that a little darker. Here we go. Let's go ahead, and with this brush that I've just created now, we'll go into our brush settings. We're going to increase the spacing like so. Okay, get them kind of tight like that. We'll go into our shape dynamics and increase the roundness jitter. So some will be a little squatter than others. Okay, increase the size jitter by a little bit like that. Right, maybe a little less. And in our dual brush, we'll just go ahead and grab something that could kind of add a bit of a breaking apart kind of a feel to this, like that. See that, how you kind of like can increase that count, maybe like a little less crazy. Okay, maybe decrease the spacing, but you want to add a little bit of variety so it's not perfect every time. Okay, and we're going to take our flow up to 100%. All right. And we'll size that baby down a little bit like this, and I can just start painting with it. See that? Now we got a color dynamics. Let's go ahead and increase the hue jitter and the brightness jitter. Okay, like so. And look at that. Now I can do this. Okay. See? Pretty nifty, right? I can even control the size with pen pressure. You can have a minimum size of maybe say 60%, so it's not going to be super small. Okay, but that helps me to really kind of get that to feel right. And then I can just take advantage of a custom brush like this. Okay. All right. What do you think about that kind of solution, gang? How's that work for you? Don't you think that's a pretty nifty way to go? This is what I love about painting digitally, is being able to come up with these solutions on the fly. Just create a brush for what you need, okay? And you're gonna be happy that you did. Look at that. So that's pretty cool. All right, now I can look at that and I can say, all right, let's go ahead and lock the transparency. and then see if there isn't a way to make that color a little better, right? I can even go into my hue saturation sliders and I can fiddle with that, you know, bring down the saturation, maybe do something more along the lines of that. You know, do we want more contrast? Do we want it a little lighter? Right? Look how much you can do with this, right? That feels kind of good right there. And go back to the brushes I was using before and hold down my tilde key, and I can just erase away what I don't need. Make sure it's all kind of fitting where it belongs, more or less. Okay, so those are the kinds of things you need to do to take advantage. Take advantage of where you are. You're in Photoshop. You need to take advantage. Lock that layer transparency, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab the same brush, go a little bigger, and I'm just gonna hit it with this and bring some of that color in there so it winds up being better sort of integrated there into parts of it. Okay, like so. All right, so much to be done, and we don't have a lot of time, but we'll get there. Okay, now let's go ahead and darken this up a little bit right back here. There we go. All right, so you see we made some progress here. We made some color choices. Now I talked about dividing up this space right here with a tree kind of a shape. Lots of brush options, but since I've got this creamy brush here with me now, may as well just take advantage. I'm gonna grab a color from here and just come on down this way, and then warm that up a little bit. We're going to let that tree start right here, and we're going to come up this way, and I'm going to let it kind of do all kinds of things in here. Actually, I think we'll start here. Actually, let's bring it right up to this line. See this? Like, I'm thinking about where things happen, you know. Start to, with that same sort of spider vein kind of approach, breaking things apart in there. And I'm going to paint over a lot of this, so just for now, just bear with me. I'm actually going to not be quite as precise as I need to be, because I'm going to come over later and get in there and break a lot of this apart with the same color that's on top of it. And that's going to be a cool effect. You'll see how that works. I know for now this looks really wonky, but just bear with me and you'll see what happens, okay? Just bear with me. I'm even gonna have that make contact with that edge right there, and I'll see if that still makes me happy later, but for now I just want to see what happens with that. And we may exit here, we may stay inside the barn shape for now. I'm not totally sure yet how that's gonna work. And we'll let this one cross over like that. We'll do more of that here in a moment. Let's do some crisscrossy bits. I want to see what that does for us. Okay, now what you do is you take this color back here and you paint over it. And I might want to use that nice color push brush for that. Okay, so we'll close this up for a moment and go ahead and grab that color push brush from Spring 2023, Kablamo. We'll size it down here. And we're going to grab this foreground color is going to be that nice bright pink, and our background color is going to be this bluish kind of color here, this blue-green kind of color. All right, and then I'm just going to, on a new layer, just paint over this. It's going to be kind of like broken apart here and there. I'll erase all that later, get rid of that later. Alright, but before we run out of time, I do want you to see sort of how this is going to play out. I'm switching back to that creamy brush for just a moment, because I'm going to take it and I'm going to add color dynamics to it with pen pressure and do more of the same here, and just going to increase that hue jitter slightly. Okay. And the reason for that is because I'm going to get a bit of control there over opacities. I do want some of it to be a little bit more sort of transparent. All right, so now I'm racing the clock a little bit, but we're going to be okay, gang. Just bear with me, bear with me, bear with me. In the last few seconds here, you'll see, oops, how this can, how something like this can work. Okay. I'm also going to use some layer opacity tricks to really make this interesting for you. Okay. So see that right there, where you let some of the opacity be a little more transparent. Okay, that's what we're going for. A little more transparent. And I'll erase it. I'll erase that stuff away in just a moment here. All right. Looking at the clock here, I've got about 1.5 minutes. Can I do it? Oh gosh, I hope so. I hope so. I want you to see where this can go. I want you to see what's possible with this technique. All right, so I might not be able to get through the entire tree. We'll see. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. Not this time. All right, now, don't really have time to get it. So here, what we're gonna do is, I want you to see how this works, okay? Oh, so close. I'm so close to my goal. All right, check it out. Here we go. What I do is I take that whole area, okay, and I can just reduce the opacity down to about like 60%. Oops, wrong. Grab them both together. There we go. Group them together. And then take that, reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, watch this. We're going to go down to like 60%. See that? And then I just erase away all the bits I don't need. Okay, erase those away, erase these away, erase them away. Bow. Okay, what you're left with is this nice area here where you can then get in there and you can get a bit more detail. But see what that does, breaking up that whole area? Very nice, very nice. All right, that's it, gang. I'm so sorry I got to go, but hey, that was cool. Hope you learned some stuff. We really, really have to do more of these. Everybody take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember, please, to be kind. Have a great weekend, and I'll say ciao for now.